start creating the API from the level 0. Fine. Now let me show you. Let's create everything from scratch. We don't need this at all. So let me drop this user DB for now. It's asking me for the confirmation to delete user DB and click on drop database. Cool. Let's also delete this folder and start everything from scratch. So now this is a plain folder. It doesn't have anything. Let me just close the as well. Now this is just a folder which is in the desktop. You can see user CRUD. So I'm starting it from scratch. That's the point that I want to show here. Now I'm pressing Control backtick to open the terminal. This is how it would look like for you. Now npm init is what you have to type. You will have a package.json file and it will ask for configuration. Just clicking enter, you have your package.json file. Now to make this work, to make this CRUD work or API creation work, what you have to do is you have to start installing the required package. The important packages for now is Mongoose. Mongoose is for database connection. Express is for routing related work, and the third thing is we need NodeMon. I'll explain you why we need NodeMon in a practical way, and we'll be using .env, which is where all your credentials would be stored. If I click enter, all your packages would get downloaded and downloaded in a folder called node modules, and by the time you will find these, a new section called dependency would get added. So the packages that I have added, you can see these, you can see it in the dependencies section where you will have .env, Express, Mongoose and NodeMon. Cool. Now every node application has a main file. So here it says by default the name file is index.js, but I'm going with industry standard. People usually make it as server.js. Now let's create a new file called server.js. This is a place where we would be creating a server. Now to create server we need Express. Let's call Express. It's const Express. We say we need Express, and we are storing the Express value into a constant called app, and we are starting a server with app.listen. We need to pass the port, and I am choosing the default port as 3000. You can have it anyway, it doesn't matter. You can name it as port 8080. And then to test, what we do is we use the same app for reference, and we'll be giving the get request, and whenever I search for localhost :800 8080, what should happen? I am saying just send the text as hello world. So this is enough. Now to run this application you need to type node, the file name server.js, and now if I get into the browser and type localhost 8080, you will see now this is how the flow is. I'm sending the request via browser, and this Express application, this Node.js application is giving me the response. That is what it is. It is giving me the response, hello world, or you can say hello environment, whichever you want. Now if I click enter, it's not working. If I send request, it's not working. It's because we have to close this server. We have to stop this terminal or stop this server and restart it. How do we restart? Node server.js. And if I send request again, you will find hello UI monk. What if I need some other value? Let's say hello good morning UI monk. Now again, to see this, I need to refresh it. Now Node application developers has come up with a new package called NodeMon. We'll be using NodeMon now. So with NodeMon, what it does is, on each control S, on each time you save your application, your server would get restarted. So that you don't have to get back to the terminal and close the server again and start the server again. So NodeMon does the work for you. Now to configure NodeMon, you need to simply give now if I type npm run start, if I type npm run start, the corresponding code would get triggered and it would get start, and your server would get started. If I click enter, you'll see the server got started. So I didn't type node space server.js. I just typed npm start, npm run start, which corresponds to this code. So let me kill the server. Now in place of start, I'll be typing npm run dev. So whenever I type npm run dev, that means this corresponding command would get executed on the terminal. So if I click enter, you'll see the corresponding code got converted, and now your server is running. Now I don't have to kill the server each time to check the application. Now I press control save. Again I'm pressing control save. See the terminal. On each control saving, your terminal is getting restarted. Your server is getting restarted. Now if I click, if I send the request, you'll see UI monk, and if I change it and click save and hit the request again, you'll see the changes getting reflected even without closing the server, restarting the server. So that's the main use of NodeMon. It's very handy. Cool. Now that we have the understanding of how to create server, how to send requests to the server, and how to receive the response from the server, now let's get into the database part. Now to connect the database, we need an application called MongoDB Atlas. There are many such variations, don't get confused. We'll look at the MongoDB, which is in this URL. So this version is called MongoDB Atlas. The other variation could be MongoDB Shell, or you'll find MongoDB Compass. So let's not get into that. So that's little complicated, and it can be set up locally. Now to test, we are in the current we are applicable everywhere. It won't be on your PC. It's applicable everywhere. It's on live everywhere. That's the point I want to make. Now make sure you are in this page and you are connected. Usually it would be disconnected on start, and once you hover it, you'll find a button called connect. Once you click on connect, now your cluster is connected, and it will give you a URL which I recommend. You can see you will find a lot of YouTube channel to get this URL. Just click on this driver and get this cluster related URL or click on legacy string. For me this works, and copy this. Make sure to change the DB password. This is the place where you change the DB password, and I'll show you a place where to add the database as well. Now let's create a database. Click on this button and we'll name it as user DB, and let the collection be users, and click on create database. Now that our database is created, our collection is created, and you have your URL, which I said get it via connect, and you have that URL. Now let's create a env file, and it should be .env. Env is nothing but environment where you keep all your secrets. Now let me reuse the previously created URL, and I would change the password after this video. Now the most important thing is you have to replace this DB password. That's one thing. The second thing is you need to attach your database. So you see, you will find this question mark, and replace it with your DB. Here in this case our DB is user DB. So this is the bare minimum that you have to do to connect your database. Once your URL is set, that means you can communicate your application with the MongoDB Atlas. So this is MongoDB Atlas. Now let me create a folder where all your database configuration will be there. Config, and inside it I want a new file called db.js, where we will be writing our code to connect with the database db.js. Now the Mongoose package is responsible for connecting your local application to the server, so we need a package called Mongoose. So const Mongoose, we need Mongoose, that's one thing. And as said, we need .env file, and this config is required so that we can access our URL. In this case this is the Mongo URL. Now we need to create a function, and that once I call that function, your application will connect with the MongoDB wherever I call that application. So wherever I call that function, and the function name is connect DB, and all your code should be inside try and catch block. That's important. All your function related to connection should be inside try and catch block. I have a function called connect DB, and inside I have a try and catch block, and here this line is responsible for connecting our URL to the MongoDB Atlas. Make sure the URL is correctly spelled, and this line will give the confirmation saying that your database is connected. If our connection fails, you will see this line of code. That's it, very simple and straightforward. Now I can call this. Now whenever I call this function on any place, your database would get initialized. Now let me call this function, which is let us call this function, and it's not the right way. We'll call where we required. In the server I need this. Now wherever I call this DB and wherever I use this function, our database should get connected. If it's not get connected, you will see the issue on the console. It says database connect DB is not a function. Let's see. Since we are using the connect DB, we need to export the function. That is what we have missed. We need to export the created function Once we export the create function, we can use it in the server.js, and we can use that function. Now once we have used this function, you'll see the server is running on port and MongoDB is connected. So it's coming from this try block saying that your MongoDB is connected. Now that your MongoDB is connected, now the next step would be about SQL. Schema is like the column names. Let's define the schema. All the schema, you would be defining it into a folder called model, and inside model, since it's related to user, I'm just make it as user. We'll simply make it user.js. When I say model slash user.js, it means we are talking about user model. Now we are creating schema, which is the column names for the table. It's not actually the column name, but giving the reference of SQL. Now we need Mongoose const we'll be creating user schema. We need to define the column names. We can name it as, so I have defined the columns. I need the field of name, I need the field of email, I need the field of password. You can have anything, and this is how the data type is similar to JavaScript data type. I'm setting all the values as string, and if you want this value as required, you can set that as well. Now we need to set the collection name. So to set the collection name, we would be making use of models, and this is going to be the collection name, and in the collection name, the collection is set, the collection values has to be set, and that we would be setting it with the help of user schema. Now your model is also ready. Now it's time for the controller. So controller stands between the controller stands as a mediator or the messenger between your views and the models. Let's create a controller in the parent folder, and we'll just name it as user.js. And over here we need, definitely, as I said, it's a intermediator between the user and the model. So to talk to the model, we need model. So let's call the model. Make sure the name is right. We have named it as user only. Now before doing any kind of request, let's create a routes so that we get a better understanding of what controller does. So let's create routes, and inside routes again we'll just name it as user.js. And inside routes, what we need is we need Express, because Express is responsible for routing. So let's call Express, and over here we would be setting called whenever someone search for, let's say, create user. Let's create that. Whenever someone search for create user on the browser, we want the relevant controller to handle it. So let's import our controller, const controller. This is our controller. We want our controller where our create user function is defined and should handle it. So let's create the create user function. So we'll be just saving it. So in the users, let's say if any of our request has create user, then the controller is responsible for handling or talking to the database and give the answer to us. So I am referring to a function which is create user. This create user, we have defined it, and as we know the request is coming, and what we should do, we should get the name, email and password from the request and store it into the MongoDB and give the message user created successful. That's one thing. Now your routes, we need to export the route because we will be using this route file in the server.js. Now let's import the route in the server.js, and we don't need this. Whenever user gives the request to localhost 8080/API/user, I'm saying check this routes. So first it will check server.js, then it will go into routes folder, find the user.js, and then in the routes folder user.js we have set the, when there is a request related to anything create user, then check the controller. The controller has connection with model, it interacts with the database, and the function currently what we have written is save this value and give the response, and this response you will get in the browser, or as of now it's, we will be getting it in the Postman. Now let's just check the Postman. I think there's an error. It says argument must be a function. This line got automatically created. Since we are in the node module, we will be using export dot module. Thing exports dot module. Let me just, yeah. Now your server is ready. Now let's focus on the Postman. When someone search, let me create a new collection here, or let me delete this. It's asking me to type delete for the confirmation. Let's create a new collection called http, or no, it's collection. Over here we are going to create a new request, and that request would be create user. You can name anything, and it's the post request, and where we are sending in the server.js, you see localhost, it's now 8080, and we have our URL. When someone search for API/user/ the request on the routes, which is create, click, and we need to send the values. It would be expect the request in the controller, you see it is expecting three things: name, email and password. Let's pass that as well as a raw data since it's a JSON. Name, the second thing is email and password. Shall I create gmail.com, and this is the password. If I click send, it says an error because it's set to get. It's not get, it's forced, and it says user created successfully. Now let's check our first API, which is sending the values through post request, was successful. Let's see whether the value got stored in the database or not. In the user DB users, you see the value got saved. If you want to check it one more time, let's just try naming it differently. Click on send again. This is second. If I click, I think I need to make a refresh. Two values got saved. Similarly, if you want a get request, you can just type. So let's go with the sequence. So all the user related routes are in the user routes. So in the routes, user routes, when someone search for get all user, or will we create the corresponding function in the controller that is taking care of is get all user. Now in the controller we need to create the function get all user. Cool. When someone search for get all user, when the request is related to all, the relevant corresponding controller function which is handling is get all user. So in the controller, the get all user doesn't expect anything, so that's why we have not done anything with request. We are just making use of model. You can see user model dot find and display the values. So let's check. This is the minimum thing that we need, and make sure there is no error. There is no error. And let's call the new API request, and we need to add a new request. Here in this case it's get request all users. Since it's get, so all the user related routes are all the request related to users are in which routes, which we have defined on the server.js, which is in user routes. Now in the user routes, when someone search for all as a request, the function that is responsible to talk to the database and get the values and display it is get all user. Now in the controller, the get all user simply talks to the model and get all the value and send the response in the JSON format. That's the flow. Now in this case you have just given the route as all and click on send. I think it says it's not connected. Let's just connect our it was not connected because our port was wrong. Send again. Here it's API/user. We are typing it as API as user, and yeah, you have got all the values which we have created. That's it. Let's meet tomorrow with another request, which would be which would be patch and which would be delete.